Ambala city, where she will take a sortie in a Rafale fighter jet in a short while from now. Well, the President received the Guard of Honor at the Ambala Air Force Station. She will shortly take a sortie in a Rafale aircraft. The Ambala Air Base is one of the crucial operational air bases of the Indian Air Force. On April 8, 2023, the President took a sortie in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft at the Tezpur Air Force Station, Assam. In September 2020, the fourth generation and most advanced Rafale jets were inducted into the IAF at Ambala Air Base. The jets were also used during Operation Sindoor, the military operation carried by India against Pakistan following the Pahalgam terrorist attack. Now, former Presidents APJ Abdul Kalam and Pratibha Patil had undertaken sorties in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft at the Air Force Station, Lohegaon near Pune. Let's take a look why the Rafale is a lethal threat to the enemies and a top choice for nations worldwide. Well, the Rafale is a twin-jet 4.5 generation fighter plane able to operate from both an aircraft carrier and a shore base. Rafale is capable of air defense, ground attack, anti-ship and nuclear deterrence missions and can carry a wide range of air-to-air, air-to-ground and anti-ship armaments. The Meteor missile, Scalp cruise missile and Mika missile system present in the aircraft makes it important from security point of view. Rafale can fly at a speed of Mach 1.8 per hour and an altitude of 50,000 feet. This fighter aircraft can carry 9,500 kilograms of bombs and ammunition at a time. Rafale jets were used during Operation Sindoor, launched by India in response to the Pahalgam terror attack. Well, the Rafale is a twin-jet 4.5 generation fighter plane able to operate from both an aircraft carrier and a shore base. Also, Rafale is capable of air defense and ground attack. And now let's take you to Haryana's Ambala Air Force Station, where President Droupadi Murmu is taking a sortie in a Rafale fighter jet. President Droupadi Murmu in Haryana's Ambala city, about to take a sortie in a Rafale fighter jet. Earlier, President received the Guard of Honor at the Ambala Air Force Station itself, and Ambala Air Base is one of the crucial operational air bases of the Indian Air Force. President Murmu will take a sortie in a Rafale fighter jet, and Rafale jets were used during Operation Sindoor, launched by India in response to the April 22nd dastardly Pahalgam terror attack. Former Presidents APJ Abdul Kalam and Pratibha Patil had also undertaken sorties in Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft at the Air Force Station Lohegaon near Pune in 2006 and 2009, respectively. In fact, on April 8th, 2023, President Murmu, also the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces, became the third president and the second woman head of the state to take a sortie in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft at the Tezpur Air Force Station in Assam. In fact, Rafale jets manufactured by the French aerospace major Dassault Aviation, Rafale fighter aircraft, were formally inducted in the Indian Air Force in September 2020 at the Air Force Station, Ambala itself. President Droupadi Murmu, right there up on your screens, the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces, about to take a sortie in the Rafale fighter jet. This will be President Murmu's second sortie in a combat aircraft, and on April 8, 2023, earlier she had taken a historic flight in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter at the Tezpur Air Force Station in Assam, becoming the third president and the second woman president to undertake such a sortie. In fact, during earlier flight in Sukhoi 30 MKI, President Murmu flew for about 30 minutes, covering the Brahmaputra and Tezpur valleys with a stunning view of the Himalayas before returning to the base. And the sortie was piloted by Group Captain Naveen Kumar, commanding officer of the 106th Squadron. That aircraft, the aircraft flew at an altitude of around 2 kilometers above the sea level and achieved a speed of approximately 800 kilometers per hour. In fact, the President herself had written that it was an exhilarating experience to fly at that time in the Sukhoi 30 MKI and expressed pride in India's expanding defense capabilities across land, air or sea. And she had also congratulated the Indian Air Force and the entire Tezpur team for organizing the sortie. Then also, the President had taken a briefing on the operational capabilities of the aircraft and the Indian Air Force and expressed satisfaction on the operational preparedness of the Indian Air Force. Right up on your screens, President Murmu at the Ambala Air Force Station, all ready to take the sortie in Rafale. In fact, President sorties in fighter jets are a part of her efforts to engage with the armed forces as their supreme commander. Also in March 2023, the President had visited INS Vikrant, India's first indigenous aircraft carrier commissioned in 2022, and interacted with the officers and sailors on board of the indigenously built aircraft. President Droupadi Murmu in Haryana's Ambala city, all set to take the sortie in a Rafale fighter jet. Earlier, she received the Guard of Honor at the Ambala Air Force Station. And to tell you that Ambala Air Force Station is one of the most crucial operational air bases of the Indian Air Force. Also to tell you about Rafale, in September 2020, the fourth generation and most advanced Rafale jets were inducted into the IAF at Ambala Air Base itself. And Rafale is capable of air defense, ground attack, anti-ship and nuclear deterrence missions, and they can carry a wide range of air-to-air air-to-ground and anti-ship armaments. The Rafale is a twin-jet 4.5 generation fighter plane able to operate from both an aircraft carrier and a shore base. Also, the Meteor missile, Scalp cruise missile and Mika missile system present in the aircraft make it very important from the security point of view. Rafale can fly at a speed of Mach 1.8 per hour and an altitude of 50,000 feet. I repeat, Rafale can fly at a speed of Mach 1.8 per hour and an altitude of 50,000 feet. Also, this fighter Rafale aircraft can carry 9,500 kilograms of bombs and ammunition at a time, and Rafale jets were used also during the Operation Sindoor launched by India in response to the Pahalgam terror attack. President Murmu right there up on your screen, set to undertake a sortie in a Rafale fighter aircraft, marking a significant moment in her engagement with India's war zone defense capabilities. It may be noted that earlier also, President undertook a sortie on the Sukhoi 30 fighter aircraft at the Tezpur Air Force Station in Assam. And President right now will be flying in a two-seater variant of the French-made aircraft with an IF senior pilot managing the controls. Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh will also be present at the base along with the Chief of the IF's Western Command, Air Chief Air Marshal Jitendra Mishra, and the Rafale fighter jet was formally inducted into the IF in September 2020 with number 17 squadron known as the Golden Arrows, stationed at Ambala, the Air Force's oldest operational base. President Droupadi Murmu at the Ambala Air Force Station will be taking a sortie in a Rafale fighter jet from the Ambala Air Force Base in Haryana, and India has used these jets to launch attacks on terrorist hideouts in Pakistan as part of the Operation Sindoor also. In fact, earlier, former presidents Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Pratibha Patil had both taken sorties in the fighter jets, and Kalam and Patil undertook sorties in a Sukhoi 30 MKI itself. President Murmu herself had taken the sortie earlier in 2023 in April, making her the third president of India to do so. The Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, President Droupadi Murmu, all set to take the sortie in an Indian Air Force combat fighter today at the Ambala Air Base. She will be the first president to fly in IF's most modern Rafale fighter aircraft. And it will be her maiden visit to one of the oldest Indian Air Force stations also. This Ambala Air Force Station houses one of the squadrons of the French-built fighter aircraft Rafale, and the Rafale jet is of course considered a 4.5 generation fighter aircraft and is armed with unmatched weapon systems and sensors with multi-role capability. In fact, the Rafale has the capability to strike enemy targets from an unchallenged standoff range of more than 300 kilometers. Also, most importantly and significantly, the Rafale jets are loaded with India-specific modifications, including Israeli helmet-mounted displays, radar warning receivers, low-band jammers, 10-hour flight data recording, infrared search and tracking system, among others. I repeat that the Rafale jets are loaded with India-specific modifications, including Israeli helmet-mounted displays, radar warning receivers, low-band jammers, 10-hour flight data recording, infrared search and tracking systems, among other important specialities. The earlier sortie of President Droupadi Murmu in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft was at the Tezpur Air Force Station in Assam in 2023, and the President was airborne at that time for about 30 minutes, flying over the Brahmaputra and Tezpur Valley with the mighty Himalayas on one side. As we told you, President Murmu is the third president and the second woman president to undertake such a sortie. Prior to her, former presidents like Pratibha Patil and Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam had also flown in the fighter jets. This will be President Murmu's maiden visit to one of the oldest Indian Air Force stations, which houses one of the squadrons of the French-built fighter aircraft Rafale. And as we told you, the Rafale jet is considered a 4.5 generation fighter aircraft and is armed with unmatched weapon system and sensors with multi-role capability. Rafales can fly up to Mach 1.8 speed and fly up to 50,000 feet, and right up on your screens, all set, we can see before the flight President Droupadi Murmu all set and seated in Rafale for this flight. In fact, nearly 6 months after India's Air Force's Rafale had taken Operation Sindoor, now President Droupadi Murmu is taking a sortie in Rafale. This is the French origin jet at Ambala Air Force Station. And the Indian Air Force's Rafale combat aircraft played a key role in Operation Sindoor. This would be the second fighter jet sortie for President Droupadi Murmu, the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces. Manufactured by the French Aerospace Major Dassault Aviation, Rafale fighter aircraft were formally inducted in the Indian Air Force in September 2020 at the Air Force Station Ambala itself. and the two IF Rafale squadrons are based in Ambala and Hashimara. To remind you, the Rafale jets were used in Operation Sindoor successfully, which was launched on May 7 to destroy several terror infrastructures in territories controlled by Pakistan. And the strikes triggered 4 days of intense clashes that ended with an understanding on stopping the military action. Rashtrapati Bhavan sources also say that President's sorties in fighter jets are a part of her efforts to engage with armed forces as their supreme commander. And in March 2023, President Droupadi Murmu had also visited INS Vikrant in the same role as India's first indigenous aircraft carrier, commissioned in 2022, and interacted with officers and sailors on board of the indigenously built aircraft. In fact, India is planning to induct more Rafale jets for the Indian Air Force in its arsenal in the near future, of which it has already procured 36 jets. And India, in fact, will now soon get 26 more Rafale jets from France for deployment on its aircraft carriers INS Vikrant and INS Vikramaditya. Dassault Aviation is also planning to set up a maintenance, repair and overall facility for the M88 engines that powers the Rafales. And this facility is expected to be located in Hyderabad and likely to play a key role in the local manufacturing and support infrastructure. Right up on your screens, we're getting you live visuals from Ambala Air Force Station. President Droupadi Murmu is all set to take the sortie in a Rafale fighter jet. Earlier, President received the Guard of Honor at the Ambala Air Force Station. And the Ambala Air Base is one of the crucial operational air bases of the Indian Air Force. In September 2020, the fourth generation and most advanced Rafale jets were inducted into the Indian Air Force at Ambala Air Base. And the jets were also used during Operation Sindoor, the military operation carried by India against Pakistan following the Pahalgam terrorist attack. Earlier, in 2023, the President took a sortie in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft at the Tezpur Air Force Station, Assam also. In fact, Rafale is a lethal threat to the enemies and a top choice for the nations worldwide, as Rafale is a twin-jet, 4.5 generation fighter plane able to operate from both an aircraft carrier and a shore base. Rafale is also capable of air defense, ground attack, anti-ship and nuclear deterrence missions, and can carry a wide range of air-to-air, air-to-ground and anti-ship armaments. In fact, Rafale is also loaded with the Meteor missile, Scalp cruise missile and Mika missile system, which is present in the aircraft itself, making it important from the security point of view. Rafale, in fact, is an extraordinary aircraft as it can fly at a speed of Mach 1.8 per hour and can fly also at an altitude of 50,000 feet. Moreover, this fighter aircraft can carry 9,500 kilograms of bombs and ammunition at a time. And former presidents Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Pratibha Patil also had undertaken sorties in Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft at the Air Force Station, Lohegaon near Pune. Rafale is one of the most advanced and capable warplanes in the world. In fact, Rafale was formally inducted into the Indian Air Force in September 2020. It has a twin-engine 4.5 generation omni-role fighter jet, and it can operate from both the aircraft carriers and the shore bases. Moreover, Rafale is capable of air defense, ground attack, anti-ship and nuclear deterrence missions. Rafale can also carry a wide range of air-to-air, air-to-ground and anti-ship armaments. And Rafale is also loaded with several special features, like it is loaded with advanced missiles like Meteor, Scalp and Mika also. Rafale is one of the most advanced and capable warplanes, as we told you, as it can fly up to Mach 1.8 per hour and can reach 50,000 feet easily. It can also carry a lot of weight. It can carry about 50,500 kilograms of bombs and ammunition at one go. Rafale is Indian Air Force's lethal air asset, and it is a multi-role fighter aircraft. And we're getting you visuals live from Ambala Air Force Station, where President Murmu is all set to take a sortie in a Rafale fighter jet. Preparations are being made. And for more, we have Nandita Dagar, our correspondent, joining us from there. Well, Nandita, what is the significance of President Droupadi Murmu taking the sortie in a Rafale fighter jet?
Now, Lipakshi, I cannot hear you very clearly, but I just caught the word significance. And you want to know the significance? It is a huge statement of intent, Lipakshi, when the Supreme Commander of our armed forces is embarking and flying on a Rafale. The Rafale was majorly employed during Operation Sindoor, the start of Operation Sindoor. In the first few days, you remember that it pulverized the Pakistani Air Force bases and pulverized the Pakistani terrorist camps. F-16s, UAVs and AWACS were sitting ducks in their hangars, in the Pakistani Air Force hangars. Their runways of Jacobabad, Sargodha were cratered, their runways were cratered. So you know that the Rafale has been very, very successful in decimating the Pakistani side. It is the Rafale which played a huge role in bringing the Pakistani the Pakistanis to their knees and and they came begging for a ceasefire because of these machines, men and machines like the men of the Air Force and the machines like this Rafale. Just now the president has the engine of this Rafale has started. The president is about to take off in a few moments from now. The cockpit cover has been covered now. The staircase has been removed. You can just see that the president is all geared up, suited up. She has been given the briefing. Her medical vitals have been tested. An operational briefing about the aircraft, its capabilities, its weapons and sensors. It is a very, very potent platform, Lipakshi, armed with hammer and scalp missiles. These were the missiles which were instrumental in Operation Sindoor, and they were the ones because they carried out huge skills of Pakistani Air Force runways, hangars, command and control systems at Chaklala, or also known as Noor Khan Air Base. So these were right under the nose of the Pakistani military headquarters, Rawalpindi. So the Air Force, our Air Force has always had an edge over Pakistan, and this time during the first round of Operation Sindoor, the Indian Air Force proved its superiority, in fact its complete superiority over the skies. The Indian Air Force not just had control over the Indian skies, but also the Pakistani skies, because the Pakistanis were bottled up. They could not venture close to the Indian aerospace. They could not fly any assets.
All right, we seem to have lost Nandika out there, but right up on your screens, we're getting you live visuals from the Ambala Air Force Station, where President Droupadi Murmu is all set to take off now from the Ambala Air Force Station in the Rafale jet. Rafale, a lethal threat to the enemies, is now all set to take off with President Droupadi Murmu to take her flight, to take the sortie in Rafale itself. The cockpit has been closed and the staircase has been removed. All the arrangements, all the preparations have been done, and Rafale is all set now to take off from the Air Force Station with President Murmu. President received a guard of honor at the Ambala Air Force Station earlier this morning. And Ambala Air Force is one of the crucial operational air bases of the Indian Air Force. President Droupadi Murmu has also earlier had this experience of taking a sortie, and she took a sortie in Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircrafts earlier also in 2023 at the Tezpur Air Force Station in Assam, and now at Ambala Air Force Station in Rafale fighter jet. President Murmu is all set to take the sortie. In fact, the Rafale jets were inducted into the Indian Air Force at Ambala Air Base itself in September 2020. And this is the fourth generation and most advanced Rafale jets. The last minute checks being done out there up on your screens. And the mighty Rafale standing all set to take off right now with President Droupadi Murmu. Rafale is a twin-jet, 4.5 generation fighter plane, able to operate from both an aircraft carrier and a shore base. And we can hear the rumbling sounds of the engine. Rafale is a lethal air asset to Indian Air Force, a multi-role fighter aircraft. Rafale getting clearance out there to take off. And President Droupadi Murmu all set to take the sortie. Rafale is capable of air defense, ground attack, anti-ship and nuclear deterrence missions also, and carry a wide range of air-to-air, air-to-ground and anti-ship armaments also. Rafale is a mighty fighter aircraft and can carry huge amounts of weight also. It can carry 9,500 kilograms of bombs and ammunition at one point of time. And that is why Rafale jets were also used during Operation Sindoor, launched by India in response to the Pahalgam terror attack. And there the jet starts moving, ready to take off, getting all the clearances, all the preparations being made and done. And now the historic flight just about to take off. We can see President Murmu waving out there. I'm sure a lot of excitement building up also there at Ambala Air Force Station itself, as President Droupadi Murmu is all set to take the flight, to take the sortie in Rafale jet right now. The jet doing the rounds, the initial rounds before the takeoff, and the rumbling sounds of the engine are quite evident. President Droupadi Murmu all set inside the aircraft now. And Rafale is a lethal threat to the enemies, and President being the supreme commander of the armed forces, taking this sortie, showing her support to the Indian armed forces. In fact, Rafale is a top choice for the nations worldwide, and it is a twin jet 4.5 generation fighter plane able to operate from both an aircraft carrier and a shore base. During a last sortie also, the President had written that it was an exhilarating experience to fly in the mighty Sukhoi 30 MKI and expressed pride in India's expanding defense capabilities across land, air and sea. And she had also congratulated the Indian Air Force and the entire team at that time for organizing the sortie. The President is flying in a two-seater variant of the aircraft with an Indian Air Force pilot, senior pilot managing the controls. A significant moment right now in her engagement with India's war zone defense capabilities. Rafale fighter aircraft taking off with President Droupadi Murmu for her maiden flight in this aircraft, marking a significant moment, a very special moment in her engagement with India's war zone defense capabilities. From Sukhoi to Rafale now, President Droupadi Murmu to take the skies again with the Indian Air Force, being the supreme commander of the Indian forces. President Murmu, the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces, the third president and the second woman head of the state to take a sortie in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft earlier at the Tezpur Air Force Station in Assam. And today, a sortie in Rafale, manufactured by the French aerospace major Dassault Aviation. Rafale fighter aircraft were formally inducted into the Indian Air Force in September 2020 at Ambala Air Force Station itself. A day marked in history, with President Droupadi Murmu taking a sortie in the Rafale jet. A very, very special moment. India had used these jets earlier also to launch attacks during Operation Sindoor, and earlier also Presidents Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and Pratibha Patil had taken sorties in fighter jets. They undertook sorties in a Sukhoi 30 MKI, and this is her maiden flight in Rafale, which is one of the most advanced and capable war planes. As I told you, Rafale was formally inducted into the Indian Air Force in September 2020. Earlier this morning, President received a guard of honor at the Ambala Air Force Station. And Ambala Air Base is one of the most crucial air bases of the Indian Air Force. The fourth generation and most advanced Rafale jets were inducted into the Indian Air Force at Ambala Air Base itself in September 2020. And 2 years back in 2023, the President had taken a sortie in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter aircraft at Tezpur Air Force Station in Assam. The first 5 Rafale aircrafts, which had arrived from France on July 27, 2020, were inducted in 17 Squadron, the Golden Arrows. Rafale fighter aircraft, which are manufactured by French aerospace major Dassault Aviation, were formally inducted into the Indian Air Force in September 2020 at the Air Force Station Ambala. And the first 5 Rafale aircrafts were inducted in 17 Squadron, the Golden Arrows. In fact, the Rafale manufacturer, Dassault Aviation, is the front runner for the multi-role fighter aircraft. And the Rafale jets were recently used in Operation Sindoor, which was launched on May 7 to destroy the several terror infrastructures in territories controlled by Pakistan. The strikes had in fact triggered 4 days of intense clashes that ended with an understanding on stopping the military actions on the 10th of May. A historic day today when President Droupadi Murmu has taken a sortie in Rafale at Ambala Air Base. Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces and the 3rd President and the 2nd woman head of the state to take this. In fact, she had taken the earlier sortie of Sukhoi 30 MKI, and she became the 3rd President and the 2nd woman to take that sortie itself. In fact, President Droupadi Murmu has created history today because she's become the first woman president of India to fly in the country's most advanced combat aircraft. She was earlier briefed about the Rafale's capabilities and the role in India's air defense also. She was well received at the air base by the senior Indian Air Force officials, President, who is also the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces. And now for more, we have Akshay Dongre joining us. Well, a historic day today, Akshay, President Murmu becoming the first woman to take this sortie.
Well, it is indeed a historic day with President Murmu taking the sortie in Rafale. Earlier, she has already taken a sortie in Sukhoi 30 MKI. That's another, quite crucial fighter jet in India's inventory of the Indian Air Force, and sort of a message that the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces has confidence in the capabilities of the Indian Air Force and the kind of valor and, bravery that they demonstrated during Operation Sindoor. This is indeed, once again, the sort of trust that our leaders have in our armed forces, and with the sortie that has taken place of President Murmu in Rafale jet is going to once again instill confidence and of our leadership into our armed forces and the kind of inventory that we are operating. So in Ambala, President Murmu have reached in the morning in the entire the suit that she wore before taking a sortie. Also sends out an inspiring signal, inspiration to hundreds and thousands of women who are also aspirational of joining the armed forces, who also are who have aspirations of serving their country and in all wings of the Indian Armed Forces. Now that the country has given even several of women fighter pilots and pilots that are now in fact operating all kind of platforms. So it's a big feat, and with President Murmu there in Ambala, This is, coming soon after the Operation Sindoor and the kind of technology and will that has been demonstrated against terror infrastructure inside Pakistan. So it's indeed a big movement for not only our armed forces and the country, but also once again a sign, sort of a message towards women empowerment, the involvement of women in the Indian armed forces in protecting our country.
Right, Akshay. In fact, President Droupadi Murmu donned a G-suit and flight helmet before boarding the twin-seater Rafale trainer aircraft. And right up on our screens, we can see the jet has taken off, and now it's actually lost in the skies. Akshay, could you explain what makes the Rafale a standout aircraft in the Indian Air Force's fleet? We've been speaking about its specialities, but you could just tell us again about what makes it so special.
Well, it's a cutting-edge technology. It's a great fighter jet, renowned in the entire world now, and sort of the momentum Rafale and Dassault Industries got after India purchased the 36 Rafales early, and now it's also considering buying Rafale M for the Navy. It is also the sort of things that set Rafale apart from all the other fighter jets in its generation is the kind of reliability it provides. It is a twin-engine fighter aircraft that is, supersonic aircraft. It has several of the best, technologies that are there available in the world. It is embedded with one of the best radars in the world. It has great avionics. It has a massive payload capacity. It has a huge range, and it can obviously get refueled by the mid-air refueling aircraft as well. So the operational range of Rafale is unmatched. When you look at the kind of operational range it has, it is next to none. If you just remove the stealth feature from the fifth generation aircraft that are there in the world, only few countries have, then as far as dogfights are concerned and as far as capabilities are concerned, Rafale is next to none.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Akshay, for all those details.